As mentioned in the previous video, we could have quite happily left the character as it was. It had a half decent texture, but we want to add a bit more detail to it now. Now we could have gone down the route of creating more height maps and then generating 2D normal maps from those. But I like to, when the model's nearly finished, export it and take it into this application, 3D Coat, and it's a lot more intuitive for adding final details and just touching up the model and fixing any slight errors. So this is 3D Coat, and what we need to do first is just import our model. Import for model for per pixel painting. Now you will have this with project files. We need to set our texture resolution. Now I've been working to 3000 by 3000. Obviously you set it to whatever you've been working to, but I do find that if I'm working on a character and let's say his target resolution is 1024 by 1024, I always work higher than the resolution that I need. So in this case, double is good, but a little bit more is even better. It just gives you a bit more flexibility further down the line. If you have to do any renders, for example, you can use the higher resolution textures as opposed to the reduced ones that are in the game. So we click OK, we wait for that to load. There we go. So this is our model, doesn't look anything special. So what we need to do next, we'll just close that down. What we need to do next is bring in the textures so we can see what we're working with. And you can bring in your normal map, your specular map, and your diffuse map. So first of all, we'll go to textures, we'll import our diffuse map. Just switch to our textures. So this is the diffuse map that we were left with. We'll import that one. There we go. And maybe that's assigned it to layer 1 here. So we'll maybe rename that to base diffuse. Next, normal map. And again, pick your body normal map. Now we're going to invert the green channel here, and that's because Maya uses normal maps slightly differently. If we didn't invert the green channel, then the normals would look wrong in here. So click OK, wait for that to load. There we go. There's our normal map. Now you can't actually edit this normal map, it's just there purely as reference. Finally, we'll import our specular map. Now here we've generated a colour specular map and it will convert it into a black and white specular. But again, we're only using it for reference, we're not actually editing the specular map in here. There we go. So there's our model with all the textures applied. Hang on, I don't think it's actually imported that specular map. Import specular map. It should apply it to another layer. Not sure why it hasn't. Oh, unless we create a new layer and we import the specular map into that new layer. I think that may be it. It was trying to overlay the normal map. There we go, that's worked. As you can see, we've got that shine. And you can see that fabric just shining through with that detail. So from here, we can go in and we can edit the model. We can create a new layer. Let's just rename this one so we know what it is. So that's our base specular. So let's edit our normal map first. Call that a name so we know what that layer is. And all we're going to do, and it's quite easy, we've got our brush set, we can set what type of brush we're going to use. And up here, this is quite important. We don't want to paint we don't want to paint this one because we are not using colour at the moment. We don't want to edit the specularity. We only want to edit the depth. And this is just effectively editing the normal map. Now you can see there are two dots there. That's because symmetry's on. So I'm just going to turn symmetry off. No symmetry. And what we're going to do is just go in and start to paint. As you can see there, it's almost like sculpting. We've easily just added a very basic crease, but this is just painting directly onto the model and adding that detail into the normal map. So when it's exported, we'll have a nice normal map with all this extra detail added in. No need to mess about overlaying it onto the base normal map or anything like that. And what I'm doing is just painting in broad strokes. If you press Control, just like in your sculpting packages, it will do the opposite. So in this case, it'll create an indentation, like so. As you can see. And there we have some basic creases. Now they're a bit chunky, so we hold down Shift and that changes it to green, like you can see. And that is effectively smoothing that down. So we can soften that at the edges just to make the crease softer. As you can see, and that's just given us those subtle soft creases. Now obviously you should have some proper reference to work from while you're doing this editing cloth. But you can then go in like that and just work on all the cloth sections, just painting in more detail. Obviously you can add more into the belt. We could even go in and say the shoulder pad, let's just add in some slices, some more damage where he's been fighting, maybe soften that off a little bit. And again, we're using quite a sharp brush here, so you've got broader brushes to use. But we're only editing the normal map at this stage. We're not editing the diffuse or anything else. Now once you're happy with what you've painted with the normal map, and remember you can turn on symmetry across X, and what it will do by default is show this symmetry plane here, which just shows you what axis it's using. So if you wanted to paint on this side, you turn on symmetry and it would automatically do it to the other side. So we need more detail in all the cloth, in his trousers, and even up here we could go in on his bandana, turn on symmetry and just add in a few more crease details around here. Like so. And again, this is just very quick. I do encourage you to download this app, and if you haven't already got it, that is, and play around with it. It's great for taking low polygon geometry that you've got a very basic normal map on and just painting in extra detail. You can use masks. It's effectively like ZBrush or Mudbox. You can actually do sculpting in it as well. As you can see up here, we have a sculpt option. You can also sculpt using voxels, and there are some quite good retopology tools in here as well. So I do recommend you get this and experiment with it. It's a great all-round package. So let's say we've edited our normal map, we've painted in all our details. Now what we want to do, if I go to View and we're just going to go to Flat Shade. Just as a tip, you can also go to Relief Only, and that will just show you the normal map, which makes it a little bit easier to paint with. What we're going to do is go to Flat Shade, and that's just going to show us our diffuse. And straight away we can see we have some issues here where we've got a slight seam on the fingers. we select our base diffuse layer, and I'm just going to select a broader brush. Now we can edit the diffuse in this, not like the normal map which was there was purely as reference. So what we can do is just go in, use our soft brush, our smooth brush, and just smooth that. Let's just turn off these. Oh, actually, I'll just wait for those to turn off. It helps if you turn off the depth and turn on the colour channel. Now if we smooth it, as you can see, we're nicely getting rid of that seam. It's not perfect, but you can always go in, select a colour, and now paint over the top of this. But just for quickly tidying up these areas, we can just go in with a smooth brush and just soften them. It just makes them less obvious, particularly on the thumb there. Just go in, just soften those, and it just gets rid of those seams. Soften the fingertips detail there. And again, just generally going around and tidying up any issues. And of course, like I said earlier, you can go in and you can paint more detail in here, maybe add a bit more to the wear and tear on his armour. Go around, even change the colour, or painting more details or logos. You even have the option to overlay text over here, which it does a very nice job of. But again, if you've got this application, then you probably already know all about all this stuff. But if you haven't, I encourage you to download it and give it a go and play around with all these sorts of tools. The bits that I'm showing you here are just touching the iceberg, really. Just the tip of the iceberg. So we've edited our normal map. We'll just turn these back on. Just give it a second to load in. View, go back to smooth shade. Turn off symmetry to get rid of that plane. So let's say we've edited our normal map. And what I'll do is I will just quickly load in a file which I've already edited. So there we go, we have all our different layers, as you can see. We've added a lot more detail, a lot more creases into his arm, and even into his trousers and his shirt, just to give that extra bit of detail. So then all you need to do is go to Texture, Export Diffuse Map. We'll go to our 3D Coat directory, overwrite this, and it'll ask you if it wants you to, if you want it to fill in the empty parts of the texture. And what this will do is it will fill out the areas around each UV shell, which will mean that when it comes to reducing this texture, it reduces texture bleed, so you won't enhance those seams. So click yes, let that export, and we do the same for the normal map using tangent space because we're working on a low polygon mesh, and you can even go in and do the specular map if you've actually gone in and edited it. So if we switch back to Maya now, I'll just grab my mouse. So here we have our character, our ninja character. He's got the extra detailing, which we've just painted in 3D Coat. As you can see, it's just helped to enhance him slightly, just make him a bit more interesting. We've got his eyes, which again are just a basic texture with on a polygon which floats over the top of his face. And this makes it easy, so in game you can just swap the texture to give him different expressions. His hair does have an alpha channel at the end, at the tips, but Maya, even in 2013 with their fancy Viewport 2.0 updates, it doesn't seem to handle transparencies as nicely as it should, although that may just be down to my video card. But this is the finished character. We could go in and do a lot more detail, do more painting, but I'm going to leave this tutorial here. We've covered all the bases, we've covered high resolution modelling, low resolution modelling, model optimization, testing the model to make sure it's working best with normal maps, UVing, texturing, and lots of other bits and bobs in between. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please drop by my website and let me know if you have. It's antonline.co.uk, and I will see you in the next tutorial.